Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's County Council meeting for March 8th, 2021. We'll start tonight with an invocation and pledge of allegiance. Our invocation is from Lieutenant Jack Huffman, who's back with us, this time in uniform, so it's all official with the Salvation Army. And Councilman Joe Cronin is going to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. If you would please stand.
Please pray with me. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to gather in this place this evening to discuss business matters. I pray that you would be in our midst. I pray that you continue to bless each family member represented here, each district, and thank you for this wonderful county of ours, St. Charles County. May you continue to have your hand of grace and mercy upon it and continue to make provisions during these difficult times in a way that only you can, Heavenly Father. We thank you for this day, and it's in your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Joe Cronin.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Brazel.
Here.
Councilmember Dave Hammond.
Here.
Councilmember Mike Elam.
Here.
Councilmember Terry Hollander.
Here.
Councilmember Nancy Schneider. Here. Councilmember John White.
Here.
So tonight, we are the beneficiary of planning and zoning and conditional use. Yay. Tonight, we're going to introduce a couple of different CUPs. So we will start with Bill number 4931.
Bill number 4931, requested by Michael Hurlbert, sponsored by Mike Elam, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 20-14 for a lawn care service to Robert Matulowick, property owner, and Green Thumb Lawn Care and Landscape LLC, Jason Vale, owner and organizer, applicant.
Robert, if you want to come forward and be sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
It's all yours.
Sure. Briefly, this is a conditional use permit in a residential zoning district for a lawn care business. That can be distinguished from a landscape contracting service by a lawn care business is essentially just cutting the grass, whereas a lawn care service is a different animal. It includes things like bulk storage of mulch and rock and things like that. That's not what they're proposing. They're proposing a lawn care service located at, make sure I get this right, 5395 Westwood Drive. And if you know Westwood Drive, the south side of Westwood Drive is more commercial, and the master plan shows that as for future commercial. On the north side of Westwood Drive is residential, and the master plan shows residential. So this is on Westwood Drive on the north side in a residential area, but just across the street there's commercial land uses. And they propose to take access off of Westwood Drive, not off the side residential street, which is called Crystal Drive. They have a 3-acre parcel where they propose to convert a house to an office, also build a storage shed for their vehicles. One of the requirements for these lawn care businesses, CUPs, is that all vehicles must, other than employee vehicles, or I'm sorry, employees' personal vehicles, must be stored indoors. So there would be no outdoor storage of lawn care vehicles, lawn mowers, etc. To address impacts such as light and sound, a landscape buffer would be installed along the northern property line, and also a fence installed along Crystal Lake Drive. The Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed this at their February 17th meeting, and following a public hearing, they recommended approval with conditions by a vote of 8 in favor and 1 against. So those conditions are now before you in a draft ordinance for your consideration.
Okay. Does anybody have a question for Robert? You want to enter? I'm sorry.
I had a question. The storage shed, is that going to be some sort of a metal shed, or do you know what that's supposed to look like, or do we have to
Yeah.
wait until they submit the site plan?
They can provide you with more information, but my understanding is it would be a traditional metal building, accessory building.
Okay, thank you. That was the only question I had.
Yes.
Steel structure, good building. It's attached to the. But I just want to make clear, I don't have any issues with this, but There is some residential ground that butts up against us that looks like you've got adequately screened. But everything in the front of it's all commercial, correct? Okay? That's what it looked like.
Right. On the opposite side of Westwood Drive is commercial, yes.
Right.
Right.
So, I mean, while this, I'm not certain I wouldn't want this in the middle of a subdivision with residential all the way around it. It's bordering a commercial area, so shouldn't be a problem there.
Right, I think that's one of the factors working in the favor of the application, even though it's borders on a residential neighborhood right across the street. They would take access from a commercial arterial roadway, and across the street is commercial.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Do you want to introduce the applicant, please?
Let's see, I can't quite see, but.
He's over in the corner. You will come on up, sir?
Please.
The staff will swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Come on up front. Introduce yourself. Tell us your name, please. You can take that off so we can hear you. It's okay.
My name is Jason Bailey, and I'm the applicant for the conditional use report, or permit for Westwood Drive.
I can't hear.
My name is Jason Bailey, and I'm the applicant for the conditional use permit that we're applying for.
Okay. Is there anything that you wanted to add to anything that Mr. Myers has said?
The only thing I would ask is if we could amend one condition, the removal of the gate off of the Crystal Drive access. Just
And the reason for removing the gate?
Two, so if someone needs access to that side of the property, we have it. And the other is just in case of an emergency. Fire department can access the entire property from both entrances.
Okay. So I remember during planning and zoning comments, there was a lot of back and forth about access. If you had that gate there, would you be accessing it from the private road?
I will not.
Okay.
I will not. I've already talked to St. Charles County Highway Department about the requirements for putting in the commercial entrance off of Westwood, as far as how wide. And we're going to put in a 26-foot wide driveway
Okay.
to handle two-way traffic coming in and out.
Does anyone have any questions of the applicant? Dave?
Yes, how large of a building are you talking about putting in? What
Uh,
you're-
40 by 90. There's an additional building on site already that's estimated at 40 by 32.
Okay.
Mr. Cronin?
We've had gates put in, here, request for a gate. Would you have a problem if that gate was restricted just for first responders? We've done that, I think, a subdivision, a few years back. We had a gate, people were concerned about the traffic, so a gate was put in, first responders had the access to it, nobody else did. Did that work for you?
That would work for me.
What subdivision we do that was, the one that had the big lake, had the muddy lake. Robert, you might remember that one. It's the one where Lorna Fromm lives next to it.
Windcastle.
Windcastle. Yeah, the third phase
Yeah,
of
we had a
Windcastle.
gate in there that was that way, so.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions for the applicant?
How many employees you think you'll have? How many vehicles?
In season, I think we'll have 25 employees.
Okay.
So on site throughout the week, we'll have 3 to 4 employees in our office, and we'll have 1 person on site 3 days a week in the shop.
Okay. Have you talked to the neighbors in the surrounding area about this? And
I've talked to Mr. Campbell, who called me, called my office, I called him back.
okay.
Any other questions?
I thought there was somebody here that wanted to ask, that came earlier that wanted to ask some questions. I don't know if they're
We-
still here or not.
We've got,
They're waiting, okay.
yeah, we haven't gotten to the public questions yet. If you guys don't have any questions, we will do that. All right, if you'll have a seat, we'll call you back up a little bit later on. So now we're going to open it up for public comment. Any individual supporting or opposing the application is invited to share their comments with the council. The council staff is going to call you forward one at a time, and each speaker who has submitted a speaker card will have the opportunity to state their case, ask their individual, or say their individual comments, remain at the podium for any follow-up questions from council, staff, or the applicant may have of you. You're encouraged to keep your comments to 3 minutes, and if you have the same information to say that somebody before you has already said, just say ditto, and we'll move forward. Not that we're trying to speed up, but there's no reason to be here for Mr. Hollander for another midnight reading of planning and zoning. We're not trying to do the same thing. And if you've got the same thing, just say, we get it. So we're all good on that. So with that, who's our first speaker?
Jerry Coors.
Jerry, if you come on up, they'll swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I did.
Go ahead, Jerry.
The deal about that gate, I own Crystal Drive.
Right.
He has no legal access to that. His exit is Westwood. His address is Westwood. That piece of property, since that was developed, has never paid 1 red cent or maintained that road.
Right.
He has no legal access to it, and if he puts that gate up there, he's going to use it every day. I don't get it. It's already approved that it couldn't go in, so he's going to have a huge entranceway off of Westwood. A fire truck can get in there, whatever. And besides that, what school I went to, commercial's commercial, residential, residential. Explain what the heck this is called or what it is. This, what the heck you call it? That you're trying to
The zoning?
essentially, huh?
You're talking about the zoning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Explain to me how come it's not one or the other?
Mr. Myers already did that at the
Well,
beginning of his
you couldn't
response.
hear him.
Sorry. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Yes. How come he hasn't have to have a fence completely around it like the ones across Westwood? None of them, no, they all got a fence completely around it. How come he doesn't have to? And how can you have commercial property without sewers? He has no sewers. There's
Okay.
a septic tank there for a resident, not 25, 30 people. He didn't say nothing about that.
Right.
How can you have that? And these trees he's supposed to plant, what kind are they? And how tall are they going to be? Because I'm going to be dead and gone before they ever hide anything.
Okay.
So,
Where are you located, sir? Looking at that
I'm the last place on the left.
okay.
Did you guys, can I ask a question?
Yep.
Is this, John, is this your word, or,
This is me.
oh, that's you?
Yep.
Oh. So, I mean, if you get the council, with the council member, you guys can make some conditions that make them more acceptable. As far as I'm dumping on the private property, I don't even see how we could do that. If it's his property, it's his property. I mean, but there's already a gate there that no one made a motion to remove that gate, so that's not even on the table.
There's no gate there currently, sir.
Oh, I misunderstood, I thought.
This is, it's proposed, it's in the plans to be
Oh, well,
done.
then that's, if it's in the conditions, then that's the way it's gotta be
Right.
right now.
So there's no gate?
No, but it says it's gotta be a gate, right? Isn't that what someone said?
No.
So at the moment, planning and zoning, his original plans had a gate in it, and during planning and zoning, they took the gate out.
Oh,
Because of his objections, and he's, just what he said before, he said at planning and zoning. Everything he said here, he said at planning and zoning, that said if he has that gate, then he's gonna use that for access onto his road. The road that he's talking about, he owns, he has the deed to, so he owns that road, and he's maintained it, it's been in his family for 50-some years.
you can't dump
Close.
you can't use somebody else's road.
Right, well, it's a road of a subdivision,
I got it, but
but
it's,
everybody who's in the subdivision has an easement to the road from what I believe you said,
Except for
planning and
that,
zoning.
except for that property.
Exactly. So that's where we're at. Anything else you need to add, sir?
I did, but I forgot.
Terry?
No, I think the planning and zoning is pretty adamant about the idea that, that this gate should not be allowed to be there because
I got
it
it.
obviously goes to his road. Now,
Right.
everything else was, the entrance off the, but the gate, I don't think there should be a compromise there.
Okay, next speaker?
Greg Hale.
Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. My issue is primarily that sewer, and
and the fact that it's a residential area, it's a residential house, what upgrades would going to be to an old septic tank from when the house was originally built? We've talked with the county in the past about how we're going to get sewers to that area. My place is immediately to the left. I got a couple acres there. And this type of a building isn't going to help bring in the sewers. I don't object to necessarily that there couldn't be commercial on that site, but it just doesn't seem like this type of a business would help that along. And that's my thoughts. Sewers aren't immediately available, or we'd have them there. And the more properties like this that isn't going to have to put one in is going to make it that much harder for the rest of the properties in there to get them. You know, it's because of the cost of it. And so it's to my knowledge, if you have a commercial building up there and you got quite a number of people there, you'd think you'd have to have the sewers to take and access them. Now, they may be gone most of the day, but surely you get in the morning, you got to use the bathroom. You get back in the evening, you got to use the bathroom. Maybe if you're spraying chemicals, you might have to have showers in there for people that get chemical on them or something like that. There's going to be use on that. I don't know how the septic system is going to handle that, and sewers would be the answer, and that would help the rest of the area. That's all I got to say.
Any questions?
I could probably answer that. Before they get a permit to put up that other building, and they're going to have a water and septic tank inspection, and they're going to have to comply with the current regulations as far as the septic system.
So if you have one system there for the house, and you got, I don't know if that changes for commercial from residential, you'll be able to put another septic tank in for the other structure?
They may or may have to replace the one that's there to serve both buildings. So it'll be up to the county inspector when she looked, or the person that looks at this as far as the septic and well.
But you don't have to have sewers for commercial structures like that?
No, we have churches and schools that are on private sewage disposal systems.
I know, and some of those would be like grandfathered. You don't generally come in with new structures anymore with that, or do you?
There's nothing grandfathered anymore. Whenever there's a change of ownership of a piece of property, the septic and well, if there's a well, I don't know if that's public water there or not, that has to be brought into compliance.
Okay. Well, that's my
Thank you.
questions. Thanks.
Next speaker,
Barbara Nelson.
Barbara. She'll swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Go ahead, Barbara.
Hi. I have a couple of concerns. I live at 1125 Crystal, which is pretty much directly across and one house up from where this is going to be.
Okay.
So first of all, the commercial properties that are currently there across the street are light commercial properties. There is no noise related to those. We've got storage sheds right directly across Westwood. Down the way, there's like a small car sales place.
Right.
Nothing with noise. Our entire subdivision is 7 houses. We bought there because of the quiet. We bought there because of the atmosphere. Bringing this in with lawnmowers all day, every day, is going to change that atmosphere, and I think it's also going to decrease our property values. So the noise is a big issue. Also, the Westwood Drive there, that's a pretty busy drive. And I know they lowered Westwood last year because of the traffic. This is going to cause traffic issues on Westwood again that we're just getting out of. And then another question that was asked is the fence and the tree line, is that all going to have to be done before they do anything else, before they start building? And then I don't think there's enough acreage there, the guys are probably going to touch on this, but as far as putting that big pole barn up, they don't have enough room there to be able to get that done and still keep it off the property lines like they're supposed to.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I don't, not at this time.
Okay. Any questions? Thanks very much.
I
Oh,
have
I'm
a
sorry, I
question,
didn't see.
not for this lady, but I still have a concern or a question about the storage facility, which is.
We're going to bring the
40 by
applicant back up
90.
after all these comments,
Okay,
and will be a
good.
chance to ask Robert and the applicant all these
Great.
questions.
I was hoping there might be a site plan that I could see where that's going to be, but I'll wait then. Thank you.
It's right there on that monitor.
Yeah, but I can't tell what.
Oh, okay.
I can't tell anything.
Next speaker,
Mark Miles.
Mark?
Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes. Greetings. As you can see, the amount of people that we have here tonight represents over 80%. We have one person that did not show up tonight to speak about our disagreement with having this built in residential property. By your master plan, your 2030 plan, it says Westwood should have all commercial on the south side, and on the north side, it should stay residential. That's one of the issues that I brought up, and I think it's important to try to address that. You say not to repeat everything, but this is going to totally change the whole concept of our quiet neighborhood. One of the things he points out in his plan is that he has approximately 15 vehicles, a couple of trucks, a bunch of trailers, or a few trailers, and it's a lawn service that just does lawn mowing. Well, the part of the thing here is in that present building that's there, that's going to be their workshop. So can you imagine living there, and now you're going to have from 7 to 6 p.m. potentially lawnmowers going off all day long on repairs? Because one question, and something that's not brought up here, is how many lawnmowers does the gentleman own? How many are in those trailers? You know, to me, that's what the important thing is. That's the noise factor that's going to just destroy the quietness and peacefulness of this neighborhood. The property values also that was brought up, I think that's very imperative. We look at that because that will go ahead and knock us down. Instead of having a view we've got of looking out in trees, now we're going to look out and see a big old building. You know, if we're going to put up a 6-foot fence, as they say, I don't think that's going to block out much. You know, the other thing that I said, and I know it's repeating, but there is nothing as far as the sewers that are going to be there. We have, or the gentleman has stated he's going to put, looking at 2 1,000 tanks in there. I don't know if that's going to do it. The traffic we covered. And I believe that somebody else is going to speak about the acreage. You know, how do we know that he is going to keep everything under the price range that was agreed to in planning and zoning for rebuilding his trucks or working on his trucks? That was a concern of the planning and zoning, and I think it was clearly stated that you got a dollar amount to it. But how do we police it? And then my concern is say, if you agree to go with this, and we see these violations coming down, what is our recourse? Do we have to call the cops on everything when somebody's down on the private roads, or they're coming down, turning around in my driveway because they made a wrong turn? You know, this is what I think, and I ask you to really consider. You're ruining a nice, beautiful residential neighborhood to allow this to go through. I ask that you don't.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker,
Tim Hanna.
Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
My name is Tim Hanna. I'm a mechanic at the United States Postal Service. I'm here representing myself in my house at 1119 Crystal Drive, which sits directly opposite of the conditional use permit, that road with the gate that we've been discussing, that almost butts up to my driveway, so I'm directly affected. A lot of things that other people said. I think a company like this should stay on a commercial property and not, we're not talking like a CPA firm or operating a house or a retiree who's trying to build furniture in his free time. We're talking about an established business, 25 employees, 15 trucks, who knows how many lawnmowers, weed whackers. I think there's potential fire hazards with this kind of business. If you have lawn clippings, small engines, They said that they don't fire up the lawnmowers in the morning, but they're doing maintenance on lawnmowers. Those have commercial lawnmowers have external oil filters. So if you're doing just simple oil changes, they're still firing up those lawnmowers constantly every time they do an oil change to prime the system again. And personally, I work afternoons. So 7 a.m. is the dead middle of the night for me. I usually don't get to sleep till 3 a.m. or so. So the idea of 15 trucks, 25 employees, lawnmowers firing up all day, the quietness of this neighborhood is a big reason I bought my house 10 years ago. And before you vote, I humbly ask each of you to ask yourselves if you would like a business like this moving in right next door. So I'll answer any questions or I'll cede my time to anyone else.
Thank you much. I should have said this at the beginning. You can go ahead and have a seat. But just so you know, this is the first reading. We will not vote on this tonight. We will vote on this in actually 3 weeks when it comes up. So it'll be the last Monday of the month is when we'll do a final vote. So tonight's the introduction. You guys get to state your case. We'll discuss it. And then at the next meeting is when we'll actually have the final vote, just to be clear. Sorry, next speaker.
Arnie Dienoff.
I like your new hat, by the way.
Didn't recognize you, Mr. Dienoff.
I know, you shaved and everything.
That was my COVID protection.
There you go.
Thank you very much,
Mr.
member.
Dean, could you get sworn in
sure.
first?
Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, so help me God. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dienoff, County Public Advocate. And as I testified at the Planning and Zoning Commission, it was very contentious. There's a lot of still issues that are unresolved and a lot of conditions that need to protect the homeowners that testified before me. 3.01 acres, in my opinion, is this property suitable for this type of conditional use permit? Is this property ripe and right for this type of business? I think that there's a lot of questions at stake, and I think there's a lot of conditions that need to be made before final approval to this ordinance. Number 3 of the condition states that all lawn care materials and any related equipment or vehicles shall be stored within the accessory structure, included but not limited to work vehicles, trailers, lawnmowers, fertilizer, and fuel tanks. Number 4, a type 2 landscape buffer as defined in section 405.435 of the County Codified Code. I agree with this, or I don't agree with this. I'd like to see an upgrade to a type 3 berm. A type 3 berm, fence, and landscaping on both sides of the property to ensure the property values of all adjoining residential neighborhoods. What came up at planning and zoning is, what's of contention here is, and there was a caveat for maintenance purposes, and I think there was a dollar amount put on that of, I believe, $175 or $200. Major repairs of the licensed vehicle or inoperable vehicle equipment shall not be allowed on the property. The hours of operation are of concern, especially on Saturdays, and when it snows, you'll have snow trucks getting equipment and salt at all hours of the night. Removal of the gate of the fence, removal of the gate of the inside the fence, that was one of the conditions, and I asked that that not be removed. Again, the hours of operation are from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and I asked that these be strictly adhered to as to not cause loud noises to the adjoining residential neighborhoods, and make sure that there's a condition of working on equipment. I asked that that be remain there with the dollar amount. I asked that a condition that any accumulation or outdoor storage of non-working equipment be added to the CUP, that no yard waste, dirt, debris, leaves, tree limbs be stored anywhere on the property. As we all know, these, if there's a mulch pile, these will accumulate and could cause a fire hazard and cause extreme smell odors during the hot summer days. There needs to be a condition of the storage of salt that it be stored inside and not outside. That the chemicals and pesticides, they would be required to obtain a permit from the Missouri Department of Agriculture and also the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. Now, our codified code speaks to parking. And according to the plan that was submitted with the documents to the Planning and Zoning Commission, I don't see anywhere where it talks about a parking plan. If you have 30 employees with monthly meetings, get-togethers, and other type functions, you're going to need, according to our codified code, a minimum of 35 spaces on some type of blacktop or concrete parking area. I see none of that on the plans for the conditional use permit or the preliminary plans or site plans that were submitted to the Planning and Zoning Division. You also need handicap accessible to comply with ADA, Americans with Disabilities for handicap parking, and van accessibility parking. I see none of those put on the plan, and that's of grave concern. So of concern are the noise concerns, starting before 7 o'clock, starting up with the engines, the banging with the bulldozers, the bobcats, the front-end loaders, those type of things. There needs to be assurances that the property values will not be dropping 30 to 40%, and these people will be stuck with their properties and can't sell them. There needs to be a fence that needs to be added to this property to ensure property values, and that some of these unsightly things that will accumulate, like do with with lawn service companies, it needs to be considered. Our tree code, our codified code calls for 20% preservation of the trees, or in lieu of that they plant trees. I don't know if they meet our code with their current conditional use permit that they've asked for. And finally, the setbacks are of grave consideration. It's too much building to put on a 3-acre lot. Where are the sidewalks on the property to ensure the pedestrians will be free from, be protected safely from vehicular vehicles? And finally, I don't see any water detention retention area as part of the plan. And when you start building buildings, you're going to take the absorption rate, and there's going to be some erosion issues. There's going to be runoff, and I don't see where they're adding a retention detention pond. And with our new code, it also requires they filter that water and slowly release that water so it doesn't impede the adjoining neighbors in the residential neighborhood. For those items, I don't think this is the place for the property. I ask that this council deny this conditional use permit. This is not the right place, and it's not fair to these residents who live behind me. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Robert Campbell.
Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Council members, appreciate the time to speak tonight. I don't envy your position. I know this is always a difficult situation. My wife and I own 1148 Crystal Drive. It's at the end of the road to the right of the Coors property. It's 6 acres. We also own adjoining property between there and Motherhead, which is another 4 acres, 3.97 to be exact. That is all natural. I've spent over $100,000 in developing that property to put a pond on it and just keep it for wildlife. We also own the end of Crystal Place, which is 1126. There's 3 parcels there, 3 lots. One has a home on it, and the other 2 are currently empty and with no plans to build because they have no septic. The area that is on the east side of this property that we're discussing is basically that's a valley, that's a drainage, and there's a creek that runs through there, which runs through my property. I addressed email to the Planning and Zoning back in January because I was not able to make the meeting, so many of the points that were made tonight I addressed in that email that I sent. Would be happy to forward it to any or all of you, just as a point of record. Again, concerns, I've purchased that property in 2010, have developed it, my home, and the reason I selected that property was because of the surrounding property around there and it being a neighbor, a very sparsely populated area, and quiet. Since then, obviously, we've become sandwiched. We're sandwiched between 364, we already had 94 on the south, and we hear it all the time. This property is residential. It is residential on all three sides of it. If a conditional use permit is granted, it still has residential property on all three sides of it. Let me get my date right, because I believe I have too many dates in my head. In 2015, I was standing right here in front of you. I wanted to add a barn to our property, and I was over the limit on what was allowable for separate buildings, outbuildings, compared to the residents that we had there. So I appreciated the efforts. It was approved with contingencies. I had to build a building, and I would love for any or all of you to come see the building that we built that is right outside the door of the Coors property. I originally was going to build basically a metal pole building, make it nice, but the council and the planning and zoning said, no, that's not going to cut it. So with some contingencies, more offset of the property lines, I had to tear down another building, another barn that was on the property to minimize the amount of separate buildings, outbuildings that I had. And I had to make it match the house down to the stonework and the finishes and everything. It was a timber constructed barn. It's beautiful. I keep all my vehicles inside. There's never a car or anything sitting outside. They're all inside. So that's one of the concerns that I have is on this 3 acres, and I have 6, mind you, on this 3 acres with this house. I know the consideration is a conditional use permit, but that's 3 acres with a house that's about 1,200 square feet right now. We're talking about 2 outbuildings, if they build, being about 5,000 square feet in total. So that's a pretty sizable building, a pretty sizable potential metal building. And unless there is a berm and significant landscaping and a fence put on what is the north side of this property, when I look out my front window, I'm going to be staring at it. And that's not right. That's not right. I will leave you with one other thing. I printed out the conditional use permits page off of the county website. And the first bullet item, it says, before approving the issuance of a conditional use permit, I'm sure you have this memorized, the county council may impose such conditions that will, in the county council's judgment, ensure that the establishment, maintenance, and operation of the conditional use will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, comfort, or general welfare. It goes on to talk about property values. There is no way that this would not adversely affect not only my property values, but all of the other residents that live on Crystal Drive and Crystal Place. We've all been represented, every house, every home has been representative here tonight, except for Crystal Place, which is the one that I rent out myself. So I thank you for your time.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker?
Michael Beatty.
Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes. You know, I'm kind of with everybody else. You got our whole neighborhood right there, except for one person, and he was sick, and he wanted to be here. We don't want it. We don't want the noise, and we don't want the traffic. You know, we're a quiet neighborhood, and we want to keep it that way. And I live at 1130 Crystal. I've been there 24, 25 years, and you know, it's a quiet neighborhood, and we all get along, and I want to keep it that way. I don't need people coming up and down the road because they missed their turn, or, you know, and I don't want to hear them trucks or lawnmowers. And I'm right across the street, too, from it, and, you know, I'm not for this business being there. And that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No further speakers.
Okay. With that, do you want to have the applicant, could you come back up, please? You're already sworn in, so you don't have to be sworn in again, just, if you would. Anyone from the council has any questions? Mr. Brazel?
How many acres is this piece on?
This is on 5395 Westwood, it's 3.02 acres.
3.02 acres?
In the highlighted property is about the property line. In addition to that, we're purchasing the 3 lots beyond it to Crystal Place. I didn't include that in the application because we have no intentions of doing anything with it.
So the buffer between, are you saying the buffer, the property directly behind you?
North of it, yes. We won't do anything with it. Just to give an additional buffer between us and the residents.
I got a question for Mike. What is our requirement, Mike, on the square footage of a barn on 3? Isn't there a maximum on 3 acres? What is it in agriculture? 3,000 square feet? No.
Robert, do you remember that?
Do you remember?
While he looks that up, does anybody do you have another question? Mr. Cronin does.
Everything, everything below Crystal Place then? Those lots above, is that what you're referring to?
From the corner of Crystal Drive and Crystal Place.
Right, that holds that narrow strip through there. Yeah.
360 feet over, I believe.
Okay, okay. And this building that you're building, is this thing, I saw your plans for the building, it's a nice steel structure, but you've got a lot of trucks. Are they all gonna fit in that building?
So we have a lot of trucks, and I'm asking for the consideration to park everything there. But of the trucks that I utilize, 8 of them are taken home every evening. So they don't all park there every night.
I want to make sure Joe's question was, are they all going to be inside?
They will be if they're there.
Sir, in planning and zoning, you mentioned that you have a person that would be working in the shop on lawnmowers, vehicles or whatever, but I believe you mentioned it would just be 3 days a week?
Yes, he works Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
Okay, and his job is to
Maintenance of vehicles.
lawnmowers?
Or lawnmowers, yes. Yes. Somebody asked the question of how many lawnmowers I had, and I have 11.
11 lawnmowers.
They're stored on box trucks. We have ramps. We don't use trailers where we're loading and unloading our vehicles, staging it every morning or every evening. They leave loaded, they come in loaded, they stay loaded, unless we need to take one off for maintenance.
And I believe at planning and zoning, you say you would have 3 employees there during the day?
I would have 3 office people, yes.
Okay.
One last thing. This was mentioned, but no one expounded on it, about snow removal. Are you actually in that business also?
I do a little bit of snow removal, yes.
Would you store salt and things like that on the property?
I have no intention of storing any salt in the bulk form right now on that property, no. Right now, I buy it and I block it where I buy it from. So you can buy it in blocks and they store it for you.
Does anybody have any other questions for him before we pull
You got an
Robert up?
answer on
Mr.
that?
Cronin?
Yeah, this might be for Robert. You know, the one gentleman said there was no commercial on that side of Westwood Drive, but that's really not true because Jason Court's, that area through there is commercial according to what's in the packet. What is that? It looks like a pretty big facility that you see off of Jason Court with the parking lots and all the cars. That's some type of commercial development,
It's
isn't
4 7,000 square foot buildings.
it? Okay?
To the east of the subject property, 500 feet, is the skating rink. That is a storage facility as well.
Okay, the stuff right along 94, those gray buildings, that's the storage units?
Those are storage buildings as well.
And then what you see at Jason Court, that's some type of storage units too, storage buildings?
It's commercial warehousing.
Commercial warehousing. So you've got a fair amount of commercial in that general area.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. If we need you, we'll call you back up, or we get Robert up to get the answers to Mr. Brazel's question and then a couple others.
Okay, you asked specifically about agricultural zoning district?
Well, I thought we had a barn size per, like 3 acres, 5 acres, you have a maximum size. What is it for 3 acres?
Well, in an agricultural zoning district, this is zone residential, but in agricultural, and it was, you may remember it was revised a few years ago. I don't know, it was 2 years ago, I can't remember the exact date, but for parcels that are 3 to 5 acres in size, 3,600 square feet is now the
Is it not?
maximum,
Okay.
maximum size. Now, I will say that we've consulted with our county attorney's office about this question before. Are the accessory buildings for conditional use permits limited by the accessory buildings for residences? And the answer we got was that it can be limited instead by the conditions in the conditional use permit itself, rather than necessarily having to abide by the residential maximums for accessory buildings.
Okay.
Did he put is there a plot plan entered into this yet? I mean, do we know where the barn's going? Like, is it gonna be?
Yes, I'm not sure if it's still displayed here, but there is a concept plan that's shown, and it shows a brown rectangle. And that brown rectangle shows this proposed new accessory building, which according to the plans would be 16 feet in height.
There was a question about sewers.
Yeah.
Do you want to address that real quick?
Sure. The parcel size is 3 acres or slightly more, so that's the minimum size to have on-site sewage disposal systems. So whatever's proposed here will obviously need to be acceptable and approvable by the Building and Code Enforcement Division in terms of sewers. They're not going to allow a system that's not going to be acceptable for the proposed use. They'll take into account how many people are working like a maximum shift during the day. And we've heard different figures here in the packet itself. There's no more than 5 in the office and 15 in the field, they're guessing. 15 in the field and 5 in the office is what they're thinking. There was a question about the buffer that's being proposed. The type 2 landscape buffer includes trees, staggered evergreen trees and deciduous trees. Evergreens, when they're installed, have to be at least 6 feet in height, 6 feet in height. And the deciduous trees have to be, I think it's at least 2.5-inch caliper. I can't remember the exact size, but there is a minimum size limit for those trees to be installed.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, with that, thank you.
Sure.
Actually, you probably shouldn't go anywhere, because we'll move on to our next bill, which is conditional use, or bill number 4932. That
Bill-
wraps up discussion tonight on that conditional use permit. We'll vote on it in 2 weeks. 3 weeks, sorry. My bad.
Bill number 4932, requested by Mike Hurlbert, sponsored by Jill Brazel, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 20-15 for an outdoor storage yard for automobiles, boats, trucks, trailers, and recreational vehicles to the Gerald A. Keevan Revocable Trust, Glennon J. Keevan Revocable Trust, Carrie L. Keevan Revocable Trust, and Lisa J. Keevan Revocable Trust property owners.
Robert, welcome back. You've already been sworn in, so we don't have to do that again. So you want to talk about CUP 2015? As Mr. Keevan moves to the front seat.
Okay, certainly. This is a request for a conditional use permit. There's a related bill on your agenda tonight for introduction that would rezone this property from A agricultural district to C2 general commercial district. The location essentially is at Highway Z and Highway N, and you may know that in the master plan, that's shown as a future commercial node, and that future land use, the commercial node extends all the way down to Buckner Road south. So this proposed storage lot will be located within that future commercial node. Having said that, there's not sewers currently located here, but there's still a commercial demand. So you'll find, for instance, a Walgreens that's already built at this intersection, a convenience store, and a animal feed store as well. So this would be 10 acres for a conditional use permit, outdoor storage yard for automobiles, boats, trucks, trailers, and recreational vehicles. Probably the most important thing that I should communicate tonight is that we're working with plans for future relocation of Highway N. Highway N corridor is one of our major growth corridors for St. Charles County unincorporated, and is recognized in the master plan. St. Charles County is working cooperatively with MoDOT on an environmental assessment for the potential relocation of that highway en route. And this proposed 10-acre storage lot is not located within the potential relocation. It's just outside of that. So should this be approved, it would not impact its operations in a negative way. The Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing and recommended a vote of 9 in favor and 0 against approval with certain conditions.
Okay. Any questions for Robert? With that, I invite Mr. Keevan to come up. Welcome back.
Thank you.
I feel like we've seen this movie before.
Yes, you have.
Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit more about the project.
Absolutely. My name is Jerry Keevan, and I live at 760 Hill and Camp Drive, Weldon Springs, Missouri. But this particular project, as you can see, I have the other two that are just to the south of this particular property. With the COVID or the pandemic, however you want to say that, RV sales are up 40%. Wow. A few weeks ago, my secretary told us that out of the 8 facilities that we currently have, we have 0 spaces available, not one size. So, and another buddy of mine that sells a lot with Bass Pro Shop, he said his items that he has are up 30%. Everybody are flocking to the outdoors, and there's no question that at this particular time, there's another need for outdoor storage again. Well, we feel like this is a great spot. Highway Z, I don't think Robert mentioned that, but Highway Z is supposed to be going behind the Walgreens, so this will not really have road frontage after that currently gets done either.
The Walgreens is the one across the street, correct?
Yes, the Mobile is right next to us, just north of us. The Walgreens is right across Highway Z.
Okay.
That is correct. But otherwise, we've seen these before and same type things. So far, we haven't had any complaints at all about them. So anyway, that's about it. Any questions?
Any questions? Mr.
Yes.
Cronin?
I remember Wayne Anthony telling us that he liked this type of development because it's good transitional zoning, use of a property in transition. So down the road, if there's more need for more commercial, you don't have our new road, you don't have a lot of development in there. So for that reason, I like this. And the other reason is you have one down the hill from my home, and you do a good job keeping it landscaped and looking nice. And the third reason is I can have one of your brothers slap you alongside the head if you don't do a good job. Okay?
That is true.
Okay. So for that being said, you guys, you're doing a good job with them. I wish you the best of luck with this one.
Thank you.
Question.
Okay, but Chief, we're going to ignore that whole slap your brother upside the head comment. That didn't happen. Mr. Brazel.
Jerry, how many acres are the other ones that are next to it? How big is that?
The one to the south of it is 2.6 acres. The one to the far south is 6.73 acres.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I talked to Jerry on the phone, and I'm not a fan of these things. I'm just not. And when Joe said transitional, that area is not so transitional anymore. I mean, they're moving the road over. They got a Walgreens on the corner of Mobile. They just built. It doesn't show there's a new gas station, a fast lane that just went in, and that's in the right spot. It's on spot 21. If you see that, there's a really big, brand new gas station that went in there, and they pushed it off the road, accepting that new highway in move. So I just don't know. I just think 10 acres of cars, and Jerry does a good job taking care of this. I'm not criticizing. He does a nice job. They're nice things for what they are. But this is more like an industrial warehouse type of thing, right on the really prime corner of Z and N. I'm just not a fan. I'm just not.
I think just to clarify, what Wayne meant was because there's not a lot of investment put into property for this use, down the road as that area develops, if that turns out to be a shopping mall down the road or some other type of more intensive use, you don't, instead of staying at a storage lot, it can be easily redeveloped into something better and nicer.
Joe, I understand that, but the lot across there, that trailer park, is from what I understand, Deerberg's bought that. So it's like, if it was transitional, it should be up there by Highway 70, like in the Forestell area or something like that, that's not developed at all. But you got all this high-end development and these developers putting in like a gas station, all that. Hell, the mobile, they tore down and they built it where he's putting right next to it. That's a brand-new mobile station. They totally weren't down and built another one.
Yep.
It wasn't even that old, you know, so.
I think it's a mobile on the run, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a mobile on the run. It's a
pretty
nice,
quick.
nice gas station. And I just don't think, and Jerry, I said this to you on the phone. I said, I'm not a fan. I'm just not a fan of these things. I go, you do what you gotta do, you know.
You haven't been a fan of the other two also.
I
understand.
really wasn't. No, I
Right.
wasn't.
I know.
And I'm still not, but they look okay for what they are, okay?
Yeah.
But then you're gonna have 20 acres of storage units right on that corner. It's just too much, I think. I'm just saying.
It's one of those kind of things where we kind of, in agreements that we made in the past, we made these kind of things, as he's talking about, necessary, I guess, because they're full. But when we said you can't keep your boats and your RVs and stuff at your house, but yet people are buying them, like, you gotta stick them somewhere. And I understand you don't want it here, but we've kind of created this problem by saying you can't keep it at home and you gotta stick it somewhere, so it's kind of where we're at. What were you gonna say, Jerry? I'm sorry.
Ladies first.
This wasn't directed to Mr. Keevan. I'm sure you do a really good job with this, but I have to agree with Mr. Brazel here. Our county is just rife with these storage lots. Yours may be beautiful and lovely, but there are a lot of them that just look terrible. And I just kind of wonder how many acres of this we have in St. Charles County. And at the rate it's going, I mean, they're going to be popping up all over the place. And I don't care how many little trees you put up or a little fence. These things are not aesthetically pleasing. They're ugly, and I just hate to see it. We're just turning this whole county, looks like, into one big storage lot. And I have to tell you, I'm just not a fan of it either. This is not directed to you personally, but I'm just saying, I'm tired of seeing all this stuff. And some of the ones that have been there for a while, they're not maintained. They're just an eyesore. So that's just my personal opinion.
Can
I'm venting.
Sure, can I comment on that a little bit?
Sure.
It's very tough to find a piece of property to be able to put a storage facility on. You just can't find them, and unless we're going to tell people that they cannot store items in the county, it's kind of tough to not allow these somewhere. If there's a better spot for it, the one, as far as this particular property, when Highway Z does get moved, it will not have road frontage.
Yeah, no, I see that.
So I think that this would be the best spot. You can't put it in a residential area. You can't put it in a agricultural zoning. It has to be moved to C2 with a conditional use permit. One of the things that Joe mentioned is that the reason why we don't put the outside or inside storage, like a mini warehouse, because these are not the highest and best use for the property. These are a transition between what they can be into a commercialized building, whether it would be a Schnucks or a Deerberg's or McDonald's or something in that nature. This is a transition time period. So I think that, and that's the reason why I don't like putting up a building. If you put up a building, then you have to recoup that cost somehow. This
No,
is
I
strictly a
understand.
fence so that I can take the fence out and they can actually reuse the gravel that is there and be very good for the next particular tenant.
Well, this is obviously a bigger discussion, but when you say transitional, I don't really see any of these going away. I see them sitting there and getting older. I just wonder, I mean, this is just a question. How many people even come and get their stuff off of there? I mean, there's old, ugly stuff that's sitting there. It's deteriorating. There are weeds and stuff coming up. There's junk laying around. I don't know. I mean, if some of these are transitional, I wish the heck they'd transition into something that looks better than these disgusting storage lots.
Nancy, I know exactly what you're saying. There are some that.
A lot of them are in
that-
my district.
That very well could be. We actually have people that we pay to come in and make sure they spray the gravel, make sure that there's not weeds in there as far as having the trees. If you notice the last ones that we've done, Joe, out in your particular area out at Highway D that we put in, I think I put in 3 times the amount of trees that were required to be put in. I have no problem in putting more trees up. Trees are cheap enough. I enjoy trees at the same time.
Just so you know, I'm
Gary-
not going to vote against this proposal. I'm just using
sure.
this opportunity to just, kind
Sure.
of, like I said, vent, which I'm going to stop doing right now.
No, I appreciate that. Gary Griffin had proposed that I put in Norway spruces, and I gladly did that. I will tell you that I think the Norway spruces ended up transplanting way better than the white pines. They will be a better screen, so on this particular one, I propose doing a whole bunch of the Norway spruce, so.
Okay. Mr. Hollander?
No, I was just going to point out that Nancy, I know the ones you're talking about in your district, and these are really a far cry from that.
No, I understand
Okay, they
that,
really
yeah.
are.
Yeah, this is not
Thank
at all
you.
directed to Mr. Keevan, so.
Mr.
I
Cronin.
just took the opportunity to.
I just want to clarify my remarks. When for some people who may not know, Wayne Anthony was our former Director of Community Development. And what he meant by transitional, and what I meant by transitional as well, is that you've got 20 acres there now, okay? If a Snooks or Dierberg's called, hey, Jerry, we want that property, we're paying you big money, what are you going to do? You're going to sell it.
Sold.
Sold, okay? That's what he meant. And what he meant was, versus if you'd put storage buildings up there and had $10 million worth of storage buildings, you may never see a Dierberg's or Snooks.
Correct.
But you have a low initial investment. Primary investment is the grading and the rock, which can be reused for another more intensive commercial development down the road. And that's what Mr. Anthony liked them. That's what I believe what he liked about them.
Yes, and that is the reason why I like it at the same time, because it can be easily transitioned into something else.
Anyone have any other questions of the applicant?
Not a question, but a comment.
Yes, sir.
I get a lot of calls from people in my district that call me and say, hey, I just got written up for my RV. It's 2 feet too big for my park of my house. I mean, this happens all the time, I mean, we created the problem. I was on the council, and I'm to blame for it. So, we created this opportunity for this gentleman to serve the people that have a trailer that's 2 feet too big for their property. So, I'm in favor of this, and I hate to go against Joe, but I think it needs to go someplace, so.
All right. Any other questions for the applicant? That, I'll reserve the right to call you back later. Do we have any?
Arnie Dienoff.
Mr. Dinoff, welcome back.
You already sworn in, sir, from before.
There you go.
You're good for the night.
There you go. Thank you very much, members of the County Council. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dienoff, County Public Advocate. And I just wanted to address Councilwoman Schneider. I totally agree. I believe there needs to be a subcommittee or some committee formed to talk about limiting the amount of acreage according to our population and our land size. It's getting out of control. Unfortunately, the bad apples make the business overall look bad. But I can attest that Mr. Keevan is a first-class operation. He runs his properties in a tip-top shape. I know that there have been complaints that have been brought to him in the past, and he has rectified them within 24, 48 hours. He doesn't let any weeds or any derelict vehicles on the property, doesn't allow the renters to work on the vehicles or any outdoor storage. So I can attest that he is a man of his word. If he tells you he's going to do something, he will make sure that it gets done. And if you bring it to his attention, he's going to be a good neighbor and make sure that it gets taken care of within a number of days, 24 or 48 hours. So my problem isn't with the applicant, but as Councilwoman Schneider said, it's in Councilman Brazel, it's an overall issue that needs to be addressed, and we need to have some type of compliance. We need to have some type of code enforcement on the bad apples and the bad actors in our county to comply with our codified code. There was a letter that was sent by the city of Wentzville on January 8, 2021 from the Planning and Community Development Director. I don't know if they're going to file a remonstrance, which would require a supermajority of the county council by state statute. But the city of Wentzville had the following recommendations: that they'd like to see all the areas paved, which I would concur with. I know Mr. Keevan wants to have a gravel, low dust area, but I would like to see the lot either paved in blacktop or concrete. That the vertical concrete curbing to the adjacent green space would afford screening and buffer is recommended for the neighboring property of the proposal. That the right-of-way dedication be 50 feet from the center line of Highway Z is recommended associated with this proposal for future roadway improvements to Missouri Highway Z. That the project's northwest corner area appears to be within the corridor project limits of the roadway improvements, and there needs to be an environmental study. Lighting planned or required, is it going to be in compliance with county code? And those are aluminums, and they would have to have the proper display or direction with the proper tops to the lights. The city wants would like those poles to be painted black and the light source be LED. And the final recommendation is that the practice of underground electric for the site's development, and I believe that Mr. Keevan testified that it already is complied with, that there's underground electric. The roadway improvements, now's the time to negotiate. This will be a intergovernmental agreement between the Missouri Department of Highways and the Missouri Transportation Commission, along with our county road board and our county Department of Transportation. If we're gonna need frontage, as we've done in other projects along Highway N at Dwella Road, we ask for that land to be given upfront in return for the conditional use permit. I would ask that the applicant, Mr. Keevan, negotiate with the county to make sure that we get that frontage road up front, as to not cost taxpayers additional funds in the future. As this is an endeavor, we all know that it's coming. You did it in the Highway N with several lots, and so it needs to be done here also. I asked that a type 3 berm be constructed, which would be landscape on the applicant's side, a berm constructed, a fence, and then trees constructed, which he's agreed to do the trees. But I'd ask that a berm be constructed in this type 3 berm initiative. That there be a closed access gate to the public, that security cameras be installed to ensure that the consumers will be properly protected. The conditional use permit allow the following conditions: that no derelict vehicles be allowed on the property, a condition that no repair of vehicles be allowed, a condition that no sales of autos, boats, campers, RVs, or trailers be allowed on the property. We want to make sure that this doesn't turn into be a used car lot also. And finally, I'm not sure if it was talked about, but I don't really see any plans with the detention area to meet our new county code with the discharge filtration and the slow release of water. If we're going to take up the surface and with these, I don't know how many vehicles, 200 vehicles on the property, I think I heard, there's got to be somewhere for the water to go. And so when you have these recreational vehicles, some are brand new, some are not in tip-top shape, they're going to have leakage, oil, transmission fluid, coolant, and so it's going to contaminate the wells in the area and contaminate our water and drinking source, and eventually go to the rivers and creeks. And so we want to make sure that our retention, that there's a filtration plan, that there's a slow release, and that we're not going to have erosion or discharge to other properties. Besides that, I ask that you approve the CUP with the conditions that I asked for, and we're all in this together. We want to make sure that the adjoining property owners are fully protected. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
No more speakers.
No more speakers. Yes,
I
sir.
got a question for Mr.
One
Keevan.
comment about the letter from the city of Wentzville. I think in the planning and zoning, just in the last year, there's probably been about 6 of these kind of things proposed. They must have a form letter that they send out, because it asks for the exact same things that would add tens of thousands of dollars to these projects. So you just kind of take that with a grain of salt from, from.
Well, and I believe
City
we've
of
also
Wentzville.
talked about before on these, they were asking for them to be blacktop, and we were saying we would prefer they not be, because it creates a bigger water runoff problem which gets into some of the things Mr. Danoff was talking about. If we did blacktop it, that's where the problems would probably come from. Mr. Brazel,
I was gonna ask Jerry, can I ask you a question real quick?
come back up, please.
On the property line on the, where the mobile gas station is and the property line where the church is there any reason why we didn't put a buffer there too for the gas station and for the, I see the plan just shows it in the front. Should there be a buffer up to the car wash to kind of make that look nice for them and maybe be a buffer along where the church is?
I actually have called the mobile station. They had no problem with the fence being on the line. I actually asked them if we could actually take a little bit of theirs out just to give the men that are putting the fence up enough room to adequately put it up. They didn't have any problem with it being on the fence line. The one to the south of it, the church, as far as they will still have a buffer of trees that will be, my fence will be.
Are those trees staying there on their side?
The majority of those trees are staying there. That
Well,
is
then
correct.
could we get a buffer on the mobile, and the mobile, it's not just for the gas station, it's just so when you're coming around that, I know the road's gonna be moved, but they're gonna keep that road in because that's the only way you're gonna be able to get to the gas station or whatever, and I guess go left on in, but can we put any kind of a buffer on that corner?
There will be, and Joe, there, see how that comes to a point over by the
Yeah.
gas station? I know, talking to Bax Engineering, Larry Walker that works with them, he said, hey, is there any way we can pull that in so that the fence doesn't go that way? And that's exactly what we decided to do, is to pull that in so that the fence is not there. And not as much for the aesthetic reasons, but he had some other reasons. But I said, I can't really use the corner so much anyway. So yes, we are going to be pulling that back.
Is that gonna end up about where the car wash? All I'm saying is I don't want, it's just for the aesthetics of there, if you put a buffer, like return it like 50 feet or something, just to make it look a little bit nicer.
I didn't have a tape measure or, a triangular ruler to see exactly what it was, but I would guess that it's pretty close to that 40 to 50 feet.
Okay.
Is what my guess would be.
All right.
And it goes off at a corner, so there would be more trees in that particular area to buffer that from.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant? Anything else you want to say, Jerry?
I did, as far as, you're right, I think that is a form letter. And I wasn't a fan of paving it either. One, there's an expense, but environmentally friendly.
Yeah.
Being that this property, I'm sure, will be used as something else besides a storage facility. And I do believe that having the extra blacktop, why put the petroleum out there, that it's not needed.
Mr. Cronin?
On an earlier one, with those letters first started coming out, I called the mayor of Wentzville because I have to work with them, their city halls in my district, whatever. And he told me pretty much, he says, that's pretty much staff justifying their job. He says, don't worry about it, Joe. We understand, but that's just not, how should I say this? It's not by our book, but we don't really care that much about it. Anyway, that's what I heard from the mayor, so whatever.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Any?
Don't repeat that.
Yes.
It's a good thing these meetings aren't broadcast to the public, huh? Any other questions for the applicant? All right, with that, thank you, Mr. Keevan.
Thank
And
you.
we will close the public comment on this conditional use permit. So that will move us along to public comment.
Actually, we have a public hearing tonight.
Oh, my bad. Did I miss that? I sure did. I looked right over it. So we'll go to public hearing. Do you have an introduction for public hearing?
It is the proposed amendments to the St. Charles County's Community Development Block Grant Funded Programs.
Is there anyone to speak in this public hearing?
Arnie Dienoff.
We're going for the trifecta. I bet we get to 4 before the end of the evening.
That's right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dienoff, County Public Advocate. And $1,060,000 is nothing to sneeze at. That's a lot of money that needs to be accountable and responsible to our taxpayers. I would ask that our program put more disclosures on our county website, that we have strict adherence to audit provisions, and that our county auditor do some investigating into potential fraud and potential use of the program, and make those audits available to the public. I would like to see this plan be consolidated. This plan was attempted to be consolidated. There were a couple takers a couple of years ago. That was the city of St. Peters and the city of St. Charles. However, there's one last partner that doesn't belong to the county consolidated plan, and that's the city of O'Fallon. They're the last part of the puzzle. The city of O'Fallon does a duplication of services that the county already does in terms of administrative and running the program. The city of O'Fallon has a full-time administrator for community development block grant funds, which would be a $70,000, which would include salary, benefits, pension contributions. And instead of that 70,000 people going to people in need to qualify for the program according to income standards and community projects that are much needed in our county, it goes to pay a political patronage job. And so I would ask the county to continue to work and negotiate with the city of O'Fallon to have them consolidate, and let's have a true consolidated county community development block grant fund. It's no reason why we're not doing it and why the city of O'Fallon hangs on to keep that position going. I would like to see some of this $1,060,000 go to ADA, Americans with Disabilities improvements, such as sidewalks to make them compliant with ADA, crosswalks to make them compliant for people who are blind or cannot hear, so they can be part of our community like anybody else and be out in the public and cross without being struck by a vehicle. That we make roadway improvements that are compliant with ADA regulations, which are under the program of the federal block grant funding. That we make public buildings, including this one, to make them more accommodating for people with handicaps and people who don't have accessibility means and don't comply with Americans with Disabilities Act. I would like to see by 2025 that all public buildings in St. Charles County at the local county level all be equipped to meet the compliance of ADA to allow anybody of any disability to attend any public meetings or any programs without assistance from other people. In our home improvement program, we need to make sure that there's not fraud that has taken place in our county program in the past, and to make sure that people are meeting those income guidelines to comply with that, and if they're leaving their home within 5 years, that it be repaid back with some type of plan back to the county as the federal code requires. And also another complaint is that we save people from being homeless from foreclosure. There's one avenue to allow for that, especially with COVID and loss of jobs. We want to make sure that families are protected and that they can stay in their home if they meet the guidelines, that they be guarded from foreclosure. Those are my items, Mr. Chairman. Just to sum it up, I just want to make sure there's more disclosures and that we combat any fraud in the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
No other speakers.
So with that, we will close this public hearing. Now, we'll move on to public comment.
Thomas Whitty. And this is regarding bill number 4933 on Dingledine Road. You don't need to be sworn in.
You don't need to be sworn in, sorry. You can just fire away. You got 3 minutes to,
Okay.
3 minutes to let it rip.
I'm Tom Whitty. I'm fortunate enough to live in the Emerald subdivision on Dingledine. Give or take, it's 40 houses, large lots. I'm in the back, I've got 1.3. To bring you up to date, it's become a walker's paradise. I mean, it looks like a train of people coming through there day and night. I'm talking 5 in the morning and after dark. And since the pandemic, everybody's walking their dogs in there because the surrounding subdivisions are such high density and the traffic is so bad. So any addition to building in that area is only going to compound that problem, especially with 100 or so houses across the street. We're going to see a barrage of people just coming to the subdivision. It's a beautiful place to walk. It's tree lined. I mean, streets are all, it's a great place to walk. But it's a little concerning for us that we see so many people we don't recognize. So 2 points I might bring up. One is I have seen the 30-year program for St. Charles. which shows a plot plan of not huge lots, but bigger lots than that's being proposed, which looks acceptable. I propose that that be instituted, or even better, St. Charles buy this property, pays Riles a good profit, and turn it into a dog park, and a walking trail. So anyway, that's my concern, is the density, and can it be shifted back to the original 30-year building plan of St. Charles County? Questions or anything?
No.
Are you good?
I'm good.
All right. Thank you for speaking.
Drew,
I'm sorry,
what-
I failed on, when we started public comment, normally we do the disclosure, and I failed to do that on this time. So when we do public comment, whenever we open a topic, we allow 3 speakers for, 3 speakers against. You have 3 minutes in which to speak. When the 3-minute timer goes off, you'll hear it beep. I will thank you for your time and ask you to have a seat, and we will bring up on our next speaker. So I apologize, I should have given you the heads up, and I left you standing there. So that was bad on me. But knowing that now, and we know the rules of the game, we'll move over to speaker number 2.
Drew Weber.
Mr. Weber. You've become rather good at using that.
Yeah, just some experience.
Just
right?
a little.
Good evening. My name is Drew Weber with Hamilton Weber, and I'm here on behalf of Rouse Company for this development at 1101 Dingledine. If it looks familiar, it's because we were here in January, but unfortunately, due to a technical glitch with the county's mapping system, the proper notices weren't set out before the public hearing, so we had to go through the process again. But there's been no changes since January. It's the exact same chart or map that I brought at the January meeting. What's proposed here is 119 homes. I know there's been conversations about density. Well, the county master plan calls for 1 to 4 units per acre in this area. And so 119 homes on a little over 40 acres is 2.9 homes per acre, which is in line with every other subdivision except this one over here, Emerald Woods, where Mr. Whitty resides. That subdivision is a nice subdivision, but it's also an outlier. That's the only subdivision in the area with average lot sizes around an acre. All the surrounding subdivisions are 8, 9, 10, 11,000 square foot homes. And so that's what we propose in the transition here. You've got the smaller 7 to 9,000 square foot homes near the northern boundary, which is adjacent to other single-family R3B zone homes, and then the larger 9, 10, 11,000 square foot homes on the southern portion, and the R1E portion, which matches up to the subdivision to the south. It's worth noting that every subdivision around, except one, is zoned R1E or R3B. And that's exactly what we've proposed. R3B on the north, next to other subdivisions at R3B, and then R1E to the south, again, R1E to the south, and again, adjacent to all R1E subdivisions. So what we propose, again, is consistent with surrounding subdivisions. Sorry to repeat myself from what I said in January, but we'd ask again for your approval at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheryl Moriarty.
Cheryl, are you here? I think Cheryl may have been here for one of the earlier issues.
Okay, and Arnie Dienoff.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dienoff, County Public Advocate. The first issue that I'd like to talk about is Senator Eigel of St. Charles County said in his General Laws Committee of the Senate Committee, I believe last week, that St. Charles County purchased a event venue. And so after checking with the administration, I guess that's not the facts. And so I don't know why Senator Eigel is stating that in a House committee that's broadcast throughout the state that I listen to every day, but I really have some problems when somebody says something that isn't true or correct. So I want to bring that to the attention of the council. The reports from our lobbyists in Jefferson City, Mike Gibbons and Tom Dempsey, are $165,000 lobbyists. Again, I would encourage Ms. Lycum, the Director of Administration, and our county executive, Mr. Elman, to put those on the county's website. I think that the citizens want to see what type of value and what type of return on investment that we're getting. We'd like to see those reports. The county collector has on your agenda a sale of a piece of property for taxes. And so I'm trying to understand exactly why the tax sale is in the amount of $24,344 when the actual value of the property is $159,000. That's kind of a difference. I know it's a tax sale, so I don't know what the condition of the property is, but you can't tell me that it lost that value and that we're not getting bids more than the $29,000. On the consent agenda is a Gateway Greenlight program, again, that we spent in excess of $10 million without any results or return on investment. You want to spend another $809,000 for emergency vehicles to turn the lights green. Will this program work? Will it decrease accidents? And what type of guarantee from the contractor? Another item on the consent agenda is the sale of 35 Shadowbrook Court in St. Charles. And my question is why do we want to sell this home if it's supposed to go to help people with disabilities to live out in the community? Why are we selling the home? It's really not mentioned in these memos. And finally, a vote of grave concern is item number 20-076. The general contractor, it was an original contract of $10 million. Change order number 1 was in $4.2 million. Change order 2 was $251 million. And now tonight's change order is another $55,000 for a project of close to $15 million of our taxpayer money. I don't understand who's driving the ship in this project, why we're going from a $10 million contract to $18.7 million. Whether we're a taxpayer at the federal, state, or county level, we're all going to pay for this some way,
Thank you, Mr.
somehow.
Dinoff. That
And it doesn't have
concludes
to
our
be
time.
welfare
Who
programs.
is our next speaker?
Thank you.
That's the final speaker.
All right.
Oh, well, I didn't turn in a card, but I'd like to address the question that was just raised. Okay.
Michelle McBride, St. Charles County Collector of Revenue. Mr. Dinoff just mentioned the $24,000 tax sale item on the agenda. That is not a sale. That is surplus funds collected at the tax sale that must come before the council for approval to release it to the Missouri Department of Senior Citizens. The property was actually sold about 2 years ago, I believe, at the tax sale, and the publicly recorded lien holders have the right to make a claim for those surplus funds. So that was not a sale of a property. That is surplus funds collected at the tax sale that by statute we must come to the council for approval to release.
Thank you for clarifying that.
While you're here,
I have a question for you, so maybe you can go home too, okay?
Okay.
I was contacted by a reporter for ProPublica the other day about the people that are running the Missouri Clean Energy, or the administrator for the Clean Energy District, a company called Renovate America that's been to this council. They filed for bankruptcy. Okay?
Correct, in
Apparently,
December.
there's been some problems elsewhere in the country. I told them I was not aware of any in our county. Are you aware of anything, or is that going okay?
We would not become aware of anything as long as the people who signed the contracts made their payments, or someone was willing to pay the full amount of the assessments at the annual tax certificate sale. I have had phone calls from people who have acknowledged they didn't really realize what they were signing. But as far as the impact on the collector's office, there has been no impact due to that.
Okay. So we don't know if we got problems or not then, really.
Well, we, St. Charles County, wouldn't have the problems. Our citizens would have
That's
the
what I'm
problems.
concerned about, the citizens.
And as far as I know, we don't have any citizens whose homes went up for the tax sale strictly because of their clean energy assessment.
Right. And I
But
think-
we've only had PACE assessments on our tax bills since 2018.
Okay.
And we do a 2-year tax sale.
Okay.
So it would take a couple of years before that could come to fruition.
If you see a rise in that, would you let us know? Because the intention of the council and county government in general is to help folks stay in their homes, need a new roof, need a new furnace, et cetera. And if there's a problem there, I think we need to address it at that time.
I will definitely keep you apprised.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So with that, we will move to oral report from the county executive.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. Just a few, two things, really. Everyone's interested in vaccinations. And shortly after our last meeting, I had a conversation along with the presiding commissioner from Franklin County, the county executive from Jefferson County, the director of administration from St. Louis County, myself, and Robert Nodell, who's in charge of distribution of doses for the governor. We expressed our concern about what we were not getting and needed to start getting. A couple days after that, Franklin County, Jefferson County, myself actually had an opportunity to talk to the governor and again express our concern to him. The result is the week before our last meeting, we were getting around 1,200 doses. The next week, I think we were hoping for 3,000. We got 2,300. Last week, we got 3,500. We found out at 4 o'clock today we're going to get 3,540 this week. I had a journalist ask me, how far are we behind? How many more doses do we need to catch up with the statewide average? And the answer is about 9,000, which means if either us or the hospitals or the RFQC or anybody else in the county could get about 3,000 more doses in 3 weeks, we could catch up. And that's the message we're going to start sending now. And the good news is when we did talk to the governor, he explained to us, and he has since made this public to the entire state, that on March 15th, when they open up this to an additional group of people, they will also change the formula. It will not be based on overall population, but it will be based on the number of eligible people in a particular area, which means if we're behind, we have more eligible people, which means we should get more and hopefully catch up. I suggested to him that I thought, among the eligible groups we're coming up on here are teachers. I suggested to him that I thought only teachers who were actually in the classroom should be vaccinated. If we did that, obviously, we would get a whole lot more, much higher percentage than some of our friends on the other side of the river. I don't know if he's going to do that or not, but I'm going to continue to encourage him. The other thing I want to mention, and Chief Frizz is in the back row there trying to be inconspicuous, but I want to congratulate him on the effort that he and the other police chiefs made to address our situation with car break-ins.
Yeah.
Now, it's amazing that all of our chiefs worked as well together as they did, and I think a lot of it was because of his leadership, and I just want to thank him. But they had some great results did it for 2 or 3 weeks, and once everybody found out what was going on, I think it's gotten a lot better. As Chief, is there anything else you'd like to report on it?
No, they're still pretty consistent. We're still running it through the month of March, and every night's a new show. So they're staying aggressive on it, but we have seen a great decrease in thefts from our residential area and from our retail areas where cars are left running. So we're not seeing the criminal come out here near like they were prior to the task force being established.
Keep up the good work. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for the county executive? I would make one quick comment about the health department and the family arena. I had somebody call me today. He's actually a alderman in Winsville, Joe. And he said that his father and his brother went to the family arena to get vaccinated, and his father was very skeptical, being a government program, as he put it, at how well this was going to run. and he said it was run as well as any program he's ever seen. Everybody was great in getting you in, keeping you socially distanced, getting you vaccinated, and getting you out the door in a very efficient manner. So hats off to all the folks who've been involved in this whole program, and the report is, from what I heard, they're doing a really good job.
They are doing a great job, and not just our people, but we've got a lot of volunteers who are vaccinating. The first one that comes to mind, the community college has a nursing program, and all those students have volunteered, and there's a whole lot of other organizations that have been chipping in. Again, we could do, Dimitri says we could do 5,000 a week at the Family Arena. We're up to 4 days last week.
Well, 4 days this week.
4 days this week. We could add a fifth day. We could get up to 2,500, and then we'll have to probably go somewhere else. But we have the ability to do the vaccinations. We just need to get the doses.
Excellent. Mr. Cronin.
It might be good to say this now while we're talking about COVID, just for the people in the audience, wherever, but you might want to check MU Healthcare, and that's the University of Missouri's healthcare system in Columbia. They have excess vaccine, and they have a reservation system that you can go on periodically and check for when they have availability. A lot of folks in my district, and myself included, my wife went there. They are doing 3,000 vaccines a day there, and it's right at Farrett Field, the home of the Tigers. So for those who that don't want to wait until the county catches up and they want to get a shot right away, check MU Healthcare, because if you can get a reservation in there, which last week wasn't a problem doing, you can drive to Columbia, but you can get it right away.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I've also heard some good things about the process at the Family Arena. Some people had told me that they were really impressed on how well that was functioning. So thanks for your hard work there.
Hats off. So with that, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
I'd like to remove facilities, please.
Facilities. Make the motion by Mr. Brazel. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
All those opposed? It is removed. Any other items?
Move to accept.
Motion to accept from Mr. White.
Second.
Second from Mr. Hammond. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. So we'll come back to facilities. Mr. Brazel, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I got a question for, who is this? Is this John or Joanne, or who's in charge of this project? Who?
Christine Ramsell,
Okay.
the Director of Facilities.
She's been waiting for an hour and a half to talk to you.
Who is the county's representation for the construction management of this project?
That's Landmark.
I don't have a problem with Landmark, but I remember that we had this meeting when you guys came to us with Landmark, and you came to us with, I can't remember who the general was, and I argued that we put it out, we should get multiple bids, which we did. And if I remember correctly, Landmark was not low bid, and I thought we appointed someone else to do it.
The construction management services actually was something that we contracted with Landmark Construction, or Contract Management, because they had gone through the feasibility study for us. Late last year, we completed it. And with the quick timeline that we had for this effort, due to the booking, the COVID, and the response time and requiring to get this done at the time, we thought December 30th. We needed to get Landmark Contract Management on board quickly. So we went ahead and offered up to work with Landmark again, because they already had the knowledge of the jail.
I understand all
and
that, but that's not what
We
this
didn't-
council approved, though. I remember this
The council
distinctly.
did approve
No.
utilizing Landmark Construction. We did bid McCarthy, and this change order is with McCarthy. It is not with Landmark.
I know, but I distinctively remember this conversation, and Landmark, it's not about Landmark, I have nothing against Landmark, it was about the process, and this council did not approve them. It was someone else who was approved. You guys use the thing saying that they did the front end scope consulting, and so therefore you're gonna give them the whole thing. And we talked about putting out for a bid, so you got RFPs from multiple companies, and somebody else was awarded this contract. And I'm gonna go back and look, because I know it wasn't Landmark.
Councilman, if I may, I'll be glad to send you all that. What you're remembering is the health building. And Landmark was, I believe, also a bidder on that. That was awarded to a different company.
I thought it was
But-
a jail too.
No, the jail was awarded to Landmark, and you were the sole no vote. So I'll be glad to pull that paperwork and send it to you tomorrow.
But I didn't know that we were doing that. We were just going to one single sourcing without bids. I don't think that's right. I just don't, and that was my point. And I'm gonna go back and look at the notes because
Okay.
I don't think that's what we did. I just don't.
I'll be glad to send you all that tomorrow, and we will send it to you in the morning. Also, the Landmark in this came in significantly under their budget, and part of that money is what's being transferred over to pay for some of the things that occurred during construction that weren't anticipated for McCarthy.
Actually, the Landmark, I read this, and I thought you did a good job. The Landmark bill got reduced by $106,000 because some of that is moved over to McCarthy. So I get what you're doing, and I don't have the concerns with Landmark because the bill's cheaper anyway. Okay.
They helped a great deal. Anything else?
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Mhm.
So, talking about facilities, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. That moves us up to bills for final passage, starting to bill number 4929.
Bill number 4929, an ordinance authorizing acceptance of a grant from the Federal Emergency Management Agency to fund 100% of the projected total cost of acquiring 3 residential structures sustaining severe and repetitive loss in flood hazard zones of unincorporated St. Charles County, and further authorizing the county executive or his designee to execute documents and perform acts that may be required for purchasing and demolishing those structures.
Any questions or comments about this bill? Seeing none, we call the roll.
An ordinance authorizing acceptance of a grant from the Federal Emergency Management Agency to fund 100% of the projected total cost of acquiring 3 residential structures sustaining severe and repetitive loss in flood hazard zones of unincorporated St. Charles County, and further authorizing the county executive or his designee to execute documents and perform acts that may be required for purchasing and demolishing those structures. Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Bill number 4929 passes. On to bill number 4930.
Bill number 4930, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute Surface Transportation Program Agreement Federal Project STP 7303619 with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for reimbursement of funds to 80% of the eligible costs up to a maximum amount of $1 million for work associated with the road construction, sidewalks, and turn lanes on Duello Road from Missouri N to Orf Road.
Any questions or comments about this bill? Seeing none, please call the roll.
An ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute Surface Transportation Program Agreement Federal Project STP 7303619 with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for reimbursement of funds to 80% of the eligible costs up to a maximum amount of $1 million for work associated with the road construction, sidewalks, and turn lanes on Duello Road from Missouri N to Orf Road. Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Bill number 4930 passes. That wraps up bills for final passage. We'll move on to bills for introduction. Thanks to all the hard work of our Planning and Zoning Committee last week, we've got a long one. So we'll start with 4933.
Bill number 4933, requested by Michael Hurlbert, sponsored by John White, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from R1B Single Family Residential District to R3B Multifamily Residential District, 12.2 acres, and R1E Single Family Residential District, 28.6 acres, as per application RZ 20-13.
Anybody have any questions about 4933? If you haven't had those questions answered by now, I'm just wondering where you've been. So, sorry. Bill number 4934.
Bill number 4934, requested by Michael Hurlbert, sponsored by Joe Cronin, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from A Agricultural District to RR Single Family Residential District as per application RZ 20-15.
Questions or comments on 4934? Mr. Cronin.
I did my homework on this one. I've spoke to both of the partners on this. I'm familiar with the area. I know most of the neighbors personally around that area. This fits well with the development in that area. It's a 3-acre upscale development. You've got 3-acre lots in St. Paul, you got 3-acre lots in Josephville, you got 3-acre lots all around this. So I'm in favor of the exception to the 5-acre rule for this. It's gonna be a nice development, and I think one of the areas is gonna be welcomed with open arms. The only comment that was even any way negative from the public about this was about a watershed through the property, which has to be protected by our ordinances anyway. So I just want to speak up because I know the delays in this have caused the owner some heartburn, but I hope everything goes through no problem. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you. We'll move on to bill number 4935.
Bill number 4935, requested by Michael Herbert, sponsored by Joe Brazel, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from A Agricultural District to C2 General Commercial District as per application RZ 20-16.
Any questions or comments on this bill? All right, move on to bill number 4936.
Bill number 4936, requested by Michael Herbert, sponsored by Nancy Schneider, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from A Agricultural District with floodway and floodway fringe overlay districts to RF Riverfront District with floodway and floodway fringe overlay districts as per application RZ 20-17.
Any questions or comments on this bill?
I have a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
I think we were here on this property last year because they were asking for either a permitted, a conditional use permit, and we talked at that time about the fact that the other similar properties contiguous to this were already zoned commercial, and I understand the owners want to make some further improvements, and I'm assuming that instead of just coming back every time and asking for a new conditional use, that they have agreed, or they have decided to request rezoning. I think it went before planning and zoning, and it was a unanimous vote to approve the rezoning. I think Mr. Dienhoff made the only opposed comment. So I would just say, in the interest of parity, equity, that this is a bill that we should pass when it comes up for a vote next time.
Very well. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to bill number 4937.
Bill number 4937, requested by Michael Herbert, sponsored by Joe Brazel, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from A Agricultural District to R1B Single Family Residential District as per application RZ 21-01.
Any questions or comments on this bill?
No, they're doing 4 homes, quarter-acre lots, and I don't know why they just don't annex it into Wentzville. I mean, they could, and if it went into Wentzville, right across the street, what do they got? 1/8-acre lots? I mean, so something like that, but it's in a highly developed area, so I mean, it's fine.
We appreciate them being part of St. Charles County. And with that, we will move on to bill number 4938.
Bill number 4938, requested by Michael Herbert, sponsored by Joe Brazel, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from A Agricultural District to RR Single Family Residential District as per application RZ 21-02.
Questions or comments on this one?
Well, again, I'll explain this again. This is similar to what Cronin said. This is around a lot of 3-acre lots. It's farther north than it is south. And we had a board meeting or a town hall meeting on Thursday, and Mike did a great job explaining to them the different colors of the 3 acres, because everyone just assumes it's 5 acres, but it's not. But this is a good buffer. This is like I said, north of N, and so 3 acres is a good match for this one. I said it.
I know, man. I was so happy to hear that. That's awesome. All right. Any other questions or comments on this?
Just for what it's worth, in my district, and I get a lot of feedback because I've lived there my entire life. What we have set up right now with the minor subdivisions and the 5-acre tracts in the rural areas for the mom and pops that want to put the kids on a piece of property on the South 40, and the nicer subdivisions with a 3-acre that's working well, Mike. So people are happy about it, the landowners are happy, the people building are happy, and we're getting, in my district, a lot of new development because of it. So keep it up. You're doing a good job on that one.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments? We're rolling. I'm feeling the positive vibe. We'll move on to bill number 4939.
Bill number 4939, requested by Michael Hurlbert, sponsored by Joe Brazel, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from R1A Single Family Residential District with PUD Overlay District to A Agricultural District as per application RZ 21-03.
Questions or comments on this bill? Seeing none, we'll move on to 4940.
Bill number 4940, requested by Michael Hurlbert, sponsored by Mike Elam, an ordinance, one, authorizing the amendment to the St. Louis Home Consortium Consolidated Plan 2016 to 2020, and amending the 2019 Annual Action Plan for St. Charles County, Missouri in its capacity as an urban county under the Community Development Block Grant Program of the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. Two, authorizing the county executive to execute all related documents, certifications, and contracts. And three, amending the 2021 budget adopted by ordinance 20-094 to accept and spend CDBG-CV funds in the amount of $1,060,488.
Any questions or comments on this bill? Seeing none, we will move on to bill number 4941, and the first one not requested by Michael Hurlbert tonight. So congratulations, someone else getting in the game, Bob.
Bill number 4941, requested by Bob Schnur, sponsored by council as a whole, an ordinance authorizing the non-binding projected tax rates of the county for the General Revenue Fund and for various special funds of and for the County of St. Charles, Missouri for the year 2021 in order to develop the notice of projected tax liability to accompany the assessor's notice of assessed value, all as mandated by Senate Bill 711 in 2008.
Any questions or comments on this bill? Seeing none, that'll wrap up bills for introduction. Not that we don't love your bills for introduction just as much. I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of Michael Hurlbert bills sponsored in April as well. And I apologize to Mr. Hollander in advance for what planning and zoning is going to be like moving forward. Because on this next month, they have so many bills that will be before them for March. They're starting an hour early, just to try to finish it the same calendar day. So with that, Mr. Brazel, you want to talk about what is going on for St. Patrick's Day down in the
Oh,
area?
yeah, absolutely. We have a St. Patrick's Day parade starting at noon in Defiance. We have a 5 and 10K run that's starting at 10. We have vendors, food trucks. We have a lot of people signed up. It's going to be an exciting event. We have we'll have the wineries, we'll have vendor tents, and then naturally all the different winery. We have shuttle buses from winery to winery, so it'll be plenty of parking.
Nice.
And it's going to be nice. Looking forward to it. Yeah.
I figured you were going to talk about that, so.
Well, no, and the nervous, everyone's all nervous because of the rain. If you look at the rain, it was saying 70%. Now it's down to 30% on Saturday, so we're looking good.
We'll kick it to Sunday. Mr. Cronin.
I wish it was as good of an announcement as Mr. Brazel had, but I want to let people know, and the council members that represent the city of O'Fallon as well, that on Thursday, March 11th, the city council is having a meeting at 7:30 p.m. And part of that is to approve the city financing $8.5 million towards a marijuana processing, cultivation, retail center and Cool Springs Industrial Drive in my district. That, to me, is a little bit of a stretch. We know medical marijuana is here, but putting it and building it with public funds is, in my words, inappropriate. Additionally, they are given a sales tax exemption, which does hurt the county government, okay, for all the materials used in the construction of this facility. So not only is the city financing this, but they're also giving them a sales tax exemption on all the materials used to make this. So to me, it's tantamount to aiding and abetting the drug dealers. But in this sense, in this world, maybe that drug dealer is legal. But anyway, if you feel like I do at 7:30, City Hall, right by the railroad tracks in O'Fallon, give them hell. Okay, so that's all I got to say.
There you go, Mr. Brazel.
Oh, one more thing. I'd like to thank Joanne and John Greifus and Ryan, Chief. We had a town hall meeting last Thursday with family, and there were over 100, 150 people there. It was a great turnout.
Nice.
And it's just an idea. You guys are welcome to use the PDF that Joanne put together. And I tell you what, we got a lot of very, very positive compliments because people don't really have a clue what's going on in the county because they don't come up here and they don't watch, watch it on TV. And so it was very positive. Chief did statistics on crime and talked about that. And Ryan did a presentation on parks and did a great job. Highways, I'm sorry.
Amanda?
Yeah, thank you for coming to it. She did a great job on the 5-year plan, and people were very excited. They got to ask questions. The senator was there, Honor was there, and we talked about state stuff. So it was a really good thing to do, and people really enjoyed it. I used to do those more often, but I haven't done one in a couple of years. But it's recommended. I know. Donna, thank you. Donna was there too. Yeah, yeah, it was nice. It was really good. Yeah.
Very cool. Any other announcements for tonight? Yes, sir.
We found a whole lot more about the plans for Augusta, and I don't know if Joe wants to say anything about it, but we heard from the developer, and the only thing that I was concerned about is that he let us know more about his plans so we don't hold him up in any way, because he seems intent on moving fast. Joe, I don't know what you want.
Well, I mean, they had us, it was the 64 Progress West meeting, and all the Frank County commissioners were there, and Warren counties, and a lot of people were in. Well, there was about 30 leaders in there, and it was a lunch. It was at our golf course. It was nice, and Steve got there a little bit late, and he's making his presentation on all the things he's going to do, and Steve's looking at me, and I'm like, he hasn't spoken to me yet. I don't know what he's talking about. So we talked about it, but we made it clear. We're very happy you guys are coming here. But they're building a hotel in Augusta and all this stuff, and people in my area are like, where does he put his hotel? I mean, we don't do that out here, that kind of thing. But I think me and Mike and John met with one of their groups, and they've got some ideas, and it's very preliminary. And I don't know, Steve or Mike, if they even met with you guys yet. We advised them that they need to get with Mike, advise them strongly. And Steve made the same point. It's like, you guys, we'd like to be ahead of this because they're like moving. They got trolleys. They're going to have the trolleys at the parade. They already got the trolleys in, and they got all these antique trucks. We're excited about it, but we just got to know as elected officials what is going on, because everyone was assuming, the county's behind us, he's getting what he wants. No, that's not true. We never once talked to this guy, so until just recently at that meeting, we weren't even face to face with him, so no, it's all good, but we got a lot of work to do, and Mike's got a lot of work to do.
To be continued.
They bought over 20 buildings in Augusta and wineries, and they bought the 5 largest wineries and the most ground. They get the most vineyards now, which is, it's good, I guess, but we're worried about transportation, we're about infrastructure, we're worried about things like that.
Sounds like he said they would be done buying all their buildings by mid-April?
He plans on going, yeah, they're gonna be open this summer, yeah.
I think they're gonna.
That's crazy.
He implied that there's still yet more to be bought by them. And my favorite part of that was talking about building a 12-hole golf course. I had not heard this idea, but I love the fact that 9 is not enough, 18 is too many, and the older I get, the worse my knees get, the more I love the idea of 12 holes. I think that's awesome. County Executive.
Mr. Chairman, now I can break 100.
No more do I have to say that, well, never mind. We'll skip that part. Any other announcements to be made? With that, I would invite a motion.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn is made. Do I have a second?
Second.
We are adjourned.
Cronin, you gotta put